When it comes to renting an apartment or buying a home, most people think you need to find a place that impresses your friends, has a lobby that smells like expensive samba wood, and includes luxury amenities that you will pay for but never actually use. We are conditioned by HGTV and Instagram to believe that our self-worth is directly tied to the square footage of our living room and the presence of a kitchen island made of marble imported from Italy. They tell you to stretch your budget. The real estate agent, who works on commission and definitely does not care if you starve, tells you that you can grow into the payments. The leasing office tells you that for just an extra $300 a month, you can get the city view, which is mostly a view of a brick wall and a dumpster, but if you squint, you can see a skyscraper. And usually, following this advice results in the exact same outcome. You become house poor. You live in a beautiful box, but you are trapped inside it because you cannot afford to leave. You eat instant noodles on your quartz countertop. You stare at your high ceilings while stressing about your low bank balance. The pain of being house poor is subtle at first. It feels like adulting. But slowly, the walls start to close in. You realize that because your rent is so high, you can't save for a car. You can't invest. You can't travel. You're working 40 hours a week just to pay a landlord for the privilege of sleeping indoors. You have essentially become a battery that powers the building. But if you want to have money left over for a life outside of your apartment, it is actually easy. You don't need to live in a cardboard box, and you don't need to move to the middle of nowhere. You just need to draw a hard mathematical line in the sand before you ever sign a lease. You just need the 30% rule. So why is this specific number the holy grail of personal finance? The logic behind the 30% rule is based on the idea of the hungry house. To explain this, let's use an analogy. Imagine your monthly paycheck is a large, delicious pie. When it comes, you bring this pie home every 2 weeks, but waiting for you at the door is a monster. This monster is your house. The house is hungry. It demands to be fed before you eat, before your car eats, and before your savings account eats. If the house is a small, manageable pet, it eats a slice of the pie, maybe 30%, and leaves you with plenty of pie to enjoy for the rest of the month. You have leftovers. You are full. But if you sign a lease for a luxury apartment that costs half your income, the house is no longer a pet. It is a T-Rex. You walk in the door and the house opens its giant jaws and swallows 50 or 60% of your pie in one bite. You are left holding a few crumbs. You have to scramble to stretch those crumbs to cover electricity, food, transport, and insurance. The math is actually simple. It looks like this. You take your gross monthly income, that is the big number before taxes are taken out, and you multiply it by 0.30. Gross income times 0.30 equals maximum rent. If you make $60,000 a year, that is $5,000 a month. $5,000 times 0.30 equals $1,500. Your rent check cannot be a penny over $1,500. The aha moment comes when you realize that housing is the lead domino. If you knock this domino down correctly, everything else falls into place. If your rent is low, your budget feels loose and easy. You can afford mistakes. You can afford fun. But if your rent is high, your budget is tight and suffocating. No amount of skipping lattes will fix a budget that is being eaten alive by a $2,500 rent payment on a $4,000 income. Now that we know the limit, how do we actually find a place to live without living in a dumpster? Step 1 is the easy first step, the hard cap filter. Before you open Zillow, before you look at apartments.com, and before you walk into a leasing office, you must calculate your number. Write it down on a Post-it note. Stick it to your computer monitor. If your number is $1,500, you set your search filter to max out at $1,500. You do not look at the apartments that cost $1,600. You do not look at the ones that cost $1,700 just to see what they look like. Humans are the only species that will look at a budget, see that they have $0 for luxury, and then convince themselves that they need stainless steel appliances and a 24-hour concierge for their mental health. We are deeply susceptible to marketing. If you look at the nicer apartment, you will emotionally move in. You will start imagining your life there. You will convince yourself, I'll just cook at home more to afford it. Spoiler alert, you won't. You will order pizza because you are depressed about how much rent you pay. You have to protect your brain from the temptation. If you never see the $2,000 apartment, you won't miss it. You will be perfectly happy in the $1,500 apartment because you won't know what you were missing. Ignorance is financial bliss. Step 2 is the secret step most people miss, the gross versus net trap. The standard rule uses gross income before taxes. This is the lenient version of the rule. It assumes that after taxes, you still have enough wiggle room. However, if you live in a place with high taxes, or if you have a lot of debt, student loans, car loans, using gross income might still leave you broke. The secret advanced step for the truly cautious is to use 30% of your net income. If you bring home $3,500 a month after taxes, 3,500 times 0.30 equals $1,050. This is a much harder number to hit. It is hard mode. But if you can hit this number, you are playing the game of life on easy mode financially. You will be saving money so fast it will feel like a glitch in the matrix. If you can't hit the net number, stick to the gross number as a hard maximum. Never ever go above 30% of gross. That is the danger zone where the house starts eating your future. Step 3 is the maintenance step, the roommate arbitrage. Let's be honest. In many cities, finding a decent one-bedroom apartment for 30% of an entry-level salary is like finding a unicorn that speaks French. It doesn't exist. This brings us to the maintenance step. You have to lower the cost per person, not the quality of the housing. You do this with roommates. A one-bedroom apartment might cost $2,000. A two-bedroom apartment might cost $2,800. If you split the two-bedroom, you pay $1,400. You just saved $600 a month. That is $7,200 a year. That is a fully funded Roth IRA. That is a trip to Europe. That is the down payment on a car, all for the minor inconvenience of having to share a kitchen with another human being. Most people view roommates as a sign of failure or college living. That is wrong. Roommates are a financial hack. They are the fastest way to slash your biggest expense in half instantly. If you are single and broke and you insist on living alone, you are paying a vanity tax. You are paying for the ego of being solitary. If you want to build wealth, get a roommate, swallow your pride, and stack cash. Now we have to do the reality check. I can hear the furious typing of people in New York, London, and San Francisco right now. You might be thinking, John, you are delusional. The average rent in my city is $3,500. I make $60,000. If I follow your rule, I would have to live in a sewer grate or commute 4 hours a day. This is the most common objection, and it is a painful one. We call this the high cost of living paradox. The rebuttal is simple, but it is harsh. The math does not care where you live. The math does not care that New York is cool. The math does not care that your friends are there. If you spend 60% of your income on rent just to exist in a cool city, you are not actually living in that city. You are struggling in that city. You are a background character in a rich person's playground. You can't afford the restaurants, the shows, or the lifestyle that makes the city fun because the landlord is taking all your money. If the rent in your city makes the 30% rule mathematically impossible, the universe is giving you 3 choices, and you must pick one. Choice A. Increase your income. You need a side hustle or a better job immediately. Choice B. Get more roommates. Not just one, maybe 2, maybe 3. Live in a house share. Choice C. Move. I know, move is the advice everyone hates. But if you are working a remote job or a generic job that pays $50,000, why are you paying San Francisco prices? That is financial suicide. You are paying a premium for a location you cannot afford to enjoy. Moving to a cheaper city where your rent is 20% of your income is like giving yourself a massive raise without actually working harder. Also, watch out for the logical fallacy of, I'll save on transportation. People justify paying $500 more for an apartment because it is walkable. But unless you are selling your car and canceling your insurance, you usually aren't saving $500. You are just paying $500 more for rent and keeping the car expenses. Do the real math. Don't use convenience as an excuse to overspend. The 30% rule is a shield. It protects you from the predatory nature of the housing market. Landlords want to squeeze every penny out of you. Banks want to approve you for a mortgage that will choke you for 30 years. They will always tell you that you can afford more. They look at your gross income and say, sure, you can spend 45%. They say that because if you go broke, they still own the asset. They don't care about your retirement. They don't care about your stress levels. Only you can protect your paycheck from the hungry house. When you draw that line at 30%, you ensure that no matter what happens, if eggs go to $10 a carton, if gas prices spike, you have a buffer. You have the other 70% of your pie to handle life. So, to summarize, calculate 30% of your gross income, set that as your absolute hard limit for rent, use roommates to force the number down if you live in a generic expensive city, and never let the house eat more than its fair share of your pie. Anyway, I'm collecting donations in the form of subscribes to fund the next video. The 30